What's going on, guys? Hello and welcome to the Spooling Up channel. My name is Naz. Today I'm currently sat in my MK4 Golf GTI. It is a 1.8 turbo with an AUM engine code in this car. What I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be going through some of the engine bay deletes and bypasses. So it's going to be the SAI, the N249, the Evap and the PCV. I'm going to be fitting an oil catch can to that system. So yeah, I'm going to quickly crack on with it because I don't have much time, and then whenever you're recording a video of something it takes longer as well, so I really need to do it because the daylight hours are really limited at this time of the year. So first of all, I'm going to run through everything I've got in the boot of the car at the minute that's going to help me do the job, and fingers crossed I get it finished today. Yeah, so let's go and have a look at everything I've bought to do this. Okay guys, so let's quickly run through everything that I've read that I need for this job. I am using a thread to do this job, so let's just have a quick look. I have a jack and axle stand, I have some wet and dry paper, I have some rag, some blue towel, some gloves, there's a 3/4 T-piece here and 2 3/4 elbows, also have some Jubilee clips. I have a new coolant neck, I have an oil catch can, I have 4mm vacuum hose, some more Jubilee clips, SAI blank off plate, I have some WD-40, I have some 1/2 inch hose, I have some 3/4 inch hose, I have some cable ties, I have some vacuum blank off caps, I have a new inlet manifold gasket, I have a new dipstick tube, I have flathead screwdrivers and a Phillips screwdriver, I have ratchets, sockets and extensions. I also have some cutters. So yeah, and you also may need some coolant to replace whatever comes out of the engine bay. You can buy resistors as well to stop throwing up engine management lights and so on and so forth on the cars, because some of the plugs are going to be left unplugged. So until you get the car mapped out, you may have a few issues there, but I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to be doing everything really basic. This is everything that I'm going to be needing. I'm going to try and put a link to the thread I'm using on the description of the video, and I will also try and list everything that I've bought for this job here too. But without further ado, like I said, run out of time, so better crack on with things. Start off in the engine bay. Right guys, so first things first, I want to get rid of the engine cover. Really simple, just get that off and get that out of the way. Right guys, so the next thing that I'm going to do is disconnect the vacuum on this reservoir here if I can, but also going to have to undo that 10mm from there. So I'm going to undo the 10mm, I'm going to pull this hose off on the side, and then this should come out of the way. Now I should just explain the reason why this was difficult to remove is because this is a vacuum reservoir and there was still some vacuum in there. So as soon as I pulled the hose off, all the vacuum was corrected, and then yeah, next thing you know, it came off really easily. But the bracket that holds that reservoir on needs to come off. I'm not too sure what size Allen key this is because I've lost some of the bits of my set, but I think it's either a 5 or a 5.5. So we want to undo this, get this bracket off. So forgetting that there's also an engine cover down here, I'm now going to have to remove this one as well. Don't forget about this one guys, because it's important for the next step. So just going to remove this piece, and then there are 2 10mm nuts we're going to do underneath this cover. Okay guys, so these 2 10mm nuts have got to go. We'll just crack those off, get rid of them. Okay guys, so I've just lifted this out of the way, and there are 2 Allen bolts here, the same size, I believe. There might be 5.5. It's the same that were on the bracket for the vacuum reservoir. So just going to get rid of those as well, and then move on to the next step. Right guys, so now this bracket's pretty much out of the way. It says to lift the bracket out of the way and cut the 4 vac lines. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just going to cut those with my cutters now, or I might slide these ones off, whatever's easiest. If they need to be cut, I'll cut them. So these 4 here. Right guys, so I've now cut those 4 vacuum lines, and this is what I'm left with down here. Everything comes away nicely. Had to put that breather out of the way just for a second because it's now time to undo the clip for the coolant temperature sensor. So we'll just undo that and take that off, and then I believe we pull this clip here out of the way. Might be able to get a screwdriver in there, pull that out of the way, and then remove the temperature sensor for now. Right guys, so when you go to pull this plug off, it is pretty simple. If you can kind of get your finger on this tab here and pull it back, it should just slide off, and then literally get a screwdriver in the clip, pull the clip out of the way. I have a bit of rag underneath here just to catch some of the coolant. Don't forget, if you have just been driving the car, only unscrew this very slowly. You'll hear the pressure difference because obviously this mounts up to pressure and you don't want that lid popping off in your face. And obviously that will relieve the pressure so that this doesn't pop off either, and we should be able to just pull that sensor out. And then there's a lot of coolant coming out. I drove the car not that long ago, but we don't really care, it's only coolant. We'll leave that to pour out. And I've just done the cap back up so it will stop some of the coolant coming out, because there's no need, the pressure was gone. So I've created like an airlock now by doing it back up, so that's all good. Not that that rag down there's really done much, but here we go anyway. We'll crack on with the next bit. Looks like there's a kink in that coolant hose down there anyway, but yeah, let's crack on with the next bits. Okay guys, so the next thing that you want to do is get some pliers or some grips and remove the 3 hoses that attach to the coolant neck. I'll try and show you the best I can. One here, one at the bottom, and one over on this side at the back, and then we can undo where it attaches to the block. Right guys, now I have the 3 coolant hoses off. Listen, it's not the easiest job. You might have a little bit of a struggle. Here's the other one down here, and here's the bottom one. You might have a little bit of a struggle, you might have a little bit of a fight with them. Just stay persistent because you will get them off eventually. And there is an Allen bolt. It's going to be really, really difficult to show you guys with the camera, but it's holding the coolant neck on. I hope it can be pointed out in the video. It may actually be up behind the hose there, but there's an Allen bolt holding on the coolant neck at the front, and there is one towards the back, guys. Sorry, it's so hard to show you, but just do your best and find the 2 bolts for it and undo them, and then pull the coolant neck out of the way. All right. Okay, now here is the coolant neck. Sometimes when you look at the new part that you've bought, here's the old one, but just giving you guys a tip, you know, you can see where the 2 Allen bolts would go now. Hopefully you can find it with your fingers anyway, but here's a tip. If you ever have a new part and you want to know where all the bits are to take off, where all the bolt holes are, you can find them on a new part and then just go to the old one and try and find it while it's on the car. So that will be going in the bin. But here, down here now, we can see where the coolant neck was and the combi valve next to it. So let's go for it and continue stripping. Right guys, so I'm really hoping if I can get my bulky camera in here, you can see the 3 bolts that need to be removed. 1, 2, 3, and then the combi valve should come off. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove them now. Right guys, so that is the 3 Allen bolts done, but it is still pretty stiff in there, so there are definitely some more things to disconnect. One of them being this hose here. You can just squeeze and pull, and that goes straight to the combi valve. And I believe there's a clip that clips that to some wires down there, so just get rid of that. And I'm gonna have a look underneath to see what else there is and remove them, and then that should help me get it off. Okay guys, so as I have a feel around on this combi valve and look back at the guide, it does say that there is another vacuum line which goes to the turbo inlet pipe. That is this one here. It is right at the back. It comes off the combi valve rigid. You may be able to see where my finger is. There is a hard line here. So I'm also just going to cut that while I'm here and then see what the next things are. Okay guys, so now this vacuum at the back has been cut. There is a lot more movement. I've also taken off that line to the turbo inlet pipe because it was in the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the SAI hose from here on the combi valve, disconnect that there, and then hopefully that gives me a little bit more play because this is all stuck within the wiring harness. I'll pull that out later. Okay guys, so I've also undone this from here, just to pull it out of the way a little bit, because the hard lines on the other side of the ones that you cut earlier get sort of stuck behind it. I've also pulled off the vacuum line for the diverter valve, and there appear to be some bits of loom clipped to the back of the combi. So once I pry them off with a screwdriver, I'm hoping it will come out. Right guys, so with a lot of persistence and pulling and tugging, managed to get it up here out of the way. But there is one more line next to the small line that needs to be cut. So I'm just going to cut it here, and then I'll rip it out of the way. Right, here we go. Should look something like this. Here we have it all removed now. So yeah, that's it. That's out the way. Won't be needing that anymore. And then here we have the engine bay, where the coolant neck is going to go back on, and also where the blank off plate for the combi valve is going to go at the back. So it's time to get scrubbing and clean all that area up. Right guys, so now is a really good time to get down there with, I actually used some wet and dry, a little bit of WD-40 and a rag to wipe it all clean after, and a little bit of tissue to dry it. So now everything's looking good. We want the surface to be nice and clean and as flat as we can. It's time for the SAI blank off plate to go on. Here we have the little rubber O-ring, which is actually going to seal it to the block, and the 2 bolts and washers, and then we'll be able to put the new coolant neck on and start putting everything on that side back together. Okay, what I'm going to do while I'm here is I want to get rid of this big bracket and everything, which is connected to the oil breather, so on and so forth. There's one plug here I've already disconnected. It literally plugs on here. Remove that, and there is another plug here that I've also removed, which I believe is this one here. So once we're plug free, we can lift this out of the way, and there's a 10mm underneath holding the breather pipe on. So I'm just going to pull that out of the way, undo that, and then remove all of this stuff here. Guys, so just a quick one. I now have my SAI blank off plate in place down there. You can see just a little black plate right next to where the coolant neck's going to go on. I'm just going to go ahead and put my new coolant neck on there now, and then connect the hoses and everything back up, and box this side of things up on this side again. Guys, obviously just make sure it's in good condition and the O-ring is there. Give the surface on the block just one last feel up to make sure that it's all nice and smooth, and then going to go ahead and put this back on, install the hoses back onto it, and the temperature sensor and the plug, etc, etc. Okay guys, so that is my coolant neck back on, all hoses also attached, and all the clips back on in the right place. Time to give the temperature sensor a little clean up, then that's going to go back in, and I'm going to slide the clip back on and put the plug back on. Guys, just remember, when you go to fit the temperature sensor back, make sure you've got an O-ring on it. Mine was stuck in the old coolant neck, so I've just taken it out, whacked it on here, and now I'm going to fit it, put it all back on. Right guys, so unfortunately for me, and for you guys as well actually, I don't know enough about engines and this particular 1.8 turbo engine to just do these deletes off the back of my head and just be like, yeah, so now I need to do this, now I need to do that, because unfortunately I don't understand all these systems on the car, and I'm following a thread, so you know, I'm just following it step by step. We've been working over at the side of the engine bay where the combi valve was and where the coolant neck is. Now the next thing it's saying to do is remove the inlet manifold, so I'm just going to follow it, and I'm hoping it all wraps up in the end, because at the minute, you know, I've been here, back over here, and then I've been doing my own little things as well. Like I removed the hockey puck style thing on my diverter valve to get access to this pipe better. This also needs to be capped off, so I'm gonna have to buy a cap for that. So it's just sort of it's a big learning curve for me as well, but I'm hoping at the end can wrap it all up and get everything sorted. But the next thing it's saying to do, inlet manifold's got to come off. It's saying to remove this line here. So we're going to pull it off there, and we're going to put a cap, because one of the caps that I do have will fit on this, and I'll cap that off straight away. Right guys, so this has come off. Just pry that clip off, and then we can reveal this port. And for the particular set that I got, seems like this white cap is going on there the best, and that should hold itself on there nicely. Pretty nice and sturdy. That's the first step. Next thing, we're going to remove the intake hose for the intake manifold. So it's just going to be the Jubilee clip here, hose clip, whatever you want to call it. Just get that undone. Give that a good old wiggle. Pull those out of the way. Get that off the intake manifold. Yeah, and then move on to the next step. Right, time to get these two plugs off. There's one, and the other one's down here, which is the type that you've got to try and get your nail into and try and pull back that, get that out of the way as well. All right, so once you've done those two, they're the two sort of that go onto the throttle body and stuff, so we'll get those off and then on to the next step. Guys, I apologize, starting to get a little bit dark, but here is the next one we want to remove, and mine is actually already deteriorating, disintegrating, whatever you want to call it, but it's definitely splitting there. So yeah, just gonna flick this clip off and pull that out of the way. This is the one that goes obviously to the brake booster. So here we go, remove this line now, left with that port there on the intake manifold, and then let's move on. Let's find out what the next step is and get on with it. Right guys, the next thing we want to do is detach the fuel rail from the intake manifold, and we need to access the two Allen bolts. One's there, one's there. So the first thing that we're going to do now is try and slide the wiring harness for the fuel rail out of the way, and I believe it's just sort of clipped to the fuel rail, so I'm just going to try and flip some of the clips up and slide it out of the way. Once you've undone those two bolts, you'll be able to pull the fuel rail out of the way. The injectors have come out, no problem, and we need to get to all the bolts down on the inlet manifold. So going to be using an Allen key. I need an Allen piece really to put into my my socket, but I can't find it. And then there's a 10mm on the bottom left and bottom right, so it's time to get the bad boy off. Let me show you now. I've removed my dipstick tube and the dipstick from the engine, because when undoing the intake manifold and pulling the intake manifold off, the dipstick tube is in the way, you can break it. I do have another one in the back. If you watched the sort of inventory at the beginning of the video, you would have seen it. Dipstick tube literally goes onto that hole down there, so if you can pry that off out of the way, it's stuck into this clip, get it out of the way, and that should help. And also down here, I don't know if you can see it, there is a hole there. There's another bolt for the inlet manifold. It's this big one here, that just holds it onto a bracket, so that's out of the way. Everything else is loose. I'll be expecting now, there is also a plug that runs down off the loom down there, and goes to the block, so I'll have to unplug that as well, otherwise the inlet manifold will not come out of the way. And then pretty much now it's ready to come out, so once I undo that last piece, it should come out of the way. Okay guys, we also have a few vacuum lines underneath the inlet manifold too. Let me just see if I can get a light. So we have, I think, 2 or 3 vacuum lines down here underneath that we also need to remove before we get on with the rest of it. Okay guys, so there's another vacuum line down there at the bottom that goes off to the fuel pressure regulator here, and that is very brittle anyway, so be careful taking it off, but it may be a case where you decide to replace it. I'm going to be ordering some and replacing that, but yeah, just be wary of that one as well. So once you have the inlet manifold off, you should be left with an engine bay looking like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop now because it's getting too dark. It's going to be too difficult to see anything, especially for filming purposes. So what I'm going to do is stop, and but first of all I might just peel off that gasket and then take the inlet manifold indoors. I'm going to be giving it a clean up, just the best I can, just a quick one, and also be cleaning up this side for the new gasket. But for now, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to throw in the towel and stop because it's getting dark. Right guys, so if you live in the UK, you know it's been snowing, but anyway, let's crack on with the car. So it's time to rip out all the rest of these vacuums that were sitting underneath the inlet manifold. Obviously the inlet manifold's still off at the minute. You've got this part of the vacuum system, this Y shaped piece that goes obviously to the brake booster. A couple of bits that we ended up taking off the inlet manifold. We've got the neck down here, which obviously links into the PCV system, and then you've got one hose here which was actually going into this wire-shaped part which goes to the hockey puck, which will all be getting removed, and then also another vacuum which comes off, goes all the way around here, and actually is what goes into the tip there. So all of that will be getting removed. So yeah, let's crack on with it. Alright guys, so it's important to undo this 10mm, obviously attach to this hard line, which then becomes flexi again and goes to the tip, because without that off, the rest of it isn't going to come off from down here, because you're really restricted with movement. So now that that's all nice and loose, I'm going to go ahead and pull it off. I had a bit of a problem here. I had to be really careful. I was pulling one of the hoses. This hose was actually the one that goes up there, and it actually just snapped completely. So things are really brittle down there. So to avoid yanking on things and trying to tug things out, I've just undone the neck so that I can get it all out without trying to pull on it, because I didn't want this to snap, because I do not have a replacement. So I'm going to go ahead and pull all these vacuum bits off it now, and then put the neck back on down there. But definitely want to take it from here for now, and then we'll have a look at it after. So within this system, you're left with a lot of gunk and creamy sludge, and this is the kind of stuff that we'll be hoping goes to our catch can instead. There's a bit of it down in this hose as well, so yeah, good riddance really. But I'm going to clean this up and then put it back on. Here we go, all of that stuff has been disconnected, left with the neck on there. Need to strip this brake booster line all the way down to the check valve, and also strip this off here and just get rid of this whole hockey puck situation from the rocker cover or valve cover, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to remove that now. Strip this hard line all the way back down to here. You've got to be really careful, because this is so brittle and it's really stiff, so just want to do our best not to break it. Now, because I need to be really careful removing that pipe, and it's right behind my math and my tip and my air filter, I'm just going to remove this stuff, guys. I know it's extra work, but I need to make sure that I don't break anything. So I'm just going to remove that stuff and yeah, crack on with it from there. So now all of that's gone, got much better access. Just want to try and get this off here. Again, I don't think it's going to be easy, but I'm going to give it a go. Here we have the brake check valve now, and after spending a while trying to pull it off, it's just too well sealed on, like it's kind of molded. So the best thing to do is get a Stanley blade, run it down the pipe, and the thing just slides off instantly. So there we go. So now it's time to set up the catch can. So what I'm going to do first things first is have a look at the hose and start setting up the elbows and the T-pieces, and getting sections of the hose and getting my kit made up. So I'm going to start doing that. It does involve some cutting and stuff, so I'm going to start off with that. Not too sure where I'm going to put my catch can at the minute, but of course the lengths of pipe that I cut are going to be determined by where exactly I'm going to put my catch can in the engine bay. So once I've figured all that out, I'll install that, and then there's a few bits left to take off, loads of things to cap, loads of things to sort of reroute, and then hopefully that's it. As you can see, the first piece that you want to cut is going to go onto the valve cover, so you need to make sure that it's long enough to go on the valve cover and long enough to accommodate the 3/4 elbow. So that is the first piece that we're going to cut. Next piece I'm going to make is going to go from this elbow, and it's going to have to link up to the T-piece, which is going to go to this neck. So what I'm thinking, rather than putting the T-piece here and then struggling to link back up to this point through all these wires and cables and stuff, I'm going to run a nice long piece of 3/4 hose to the T-piece out here, and then just come straight up onto this piece, so I'm not running through all of this stuff all together. So if you want, you can cut this piece a little bit longer so it comes out even further, and then you can just do a straight connection straight down to the T-piece that comes off that neck. So I'm going to give that a shot now, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So what you can see, what I've done here is I've slid the hose on to that neck coming from the oil cooler, and I've put the Jubilee on it. Now I'm literally going to cut into the hose and put the T-piece straight up to the elbow that I've got here, and then that's going to be that side of it done. Right guys, so here is the setup I've gone for here. You can see runs down to the T-piece, runs up to the rocker cover. There we go. Right guys, so the next thing I'm going to do at the minute is think about mounting my catch can, and I think that this is one of the most popular places for it. This box has just got some relays in it. Hopefully we can move them out of the way and get the catch can mounted on the bracket that this mounts on. What we want to do is access this area here. So what I've done is I've pulled the seal off where it sits along here, undone 4 screws for the cover on the pollen filter, and pulled off this cover using the tabs on the side. And then now this is free. This is where we're going to hopefully be tucking our wiring into. Okay guys, so it's a pretty simple one. Just removed the MAF sensor plug off here, and then this literally, there's a tab at the back. If you push it in, you can pull that off, and then we want to undo the top of this box and get that off as well. So what you want to do is get the relays out of the box, and you want to be able to tuck this all in here. Just do it the best way you can. If you need to cut some of this insulation tape off to separate it from that plug a little bit better, then do so. I'm going to try and feed them through this, or get rid of this, and then just tuck them into place. So I've managed to tuck the relays in that little sort of channel or duct for the wiring. So all I'm going to do is try and close things now, and then that leaves me with space here to try and fit my oil catch can there. You might need to make up a bracket for that. I'm going to have to, but yeah, that's where I'll be mounting it anyway. So we now have everything tucked in there nicely. You wouldn't even know that there were relays in the engine bay before. Now I'm just going to have a look at making this bracket up for mounting the catch can. Okay, so I have now mounted my catch can just with like a homemade bracket. I will be spraying this black, but for now I just want to get it up and everything working. When I get some time, I'll primer it and everything and spray it properly. For now, I'm going to link up the hoses to the turbo inlet pipe and down to the T-piece down here, and then that is my catch can install done. Right guys, so we've connected the outlet of the catch can round into the last 3/4 elbow that I have and into the tip, and then I'm literally just going to connect the inlet down to the T-piece down there, and then that's the catch can install done. And now I also have the catch can inlet set up down to my T-piece, up here to the rocker cover of course, and the other side going to the oil cooler. So now that is all done. Okay, so I'm now gonna turn my attention to over this side of the engine bay. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna disconnect this line coming off here. That will be getting plugged, and this comes all the way down here. I'll be unplugging that off the Evap reg, and I will be disconnecting this from the Evap reg, which follows the line of all of this vacuum down to one of the hoses that we cut earlier. Just while I was here removing all of this, I've noticed that I've got a split here, so I wonder if that would have been causing me any trouble. I'd say probably yes. Right guys, so I now pulled that whole reservoir out of the way. I just disconnected the washer bottle to move it so that I got enough space to pull that out of the way. So I'm just going to secure that back and then move on to the next step. So if we follow these annoying tubes all the way down in the engine bay, we come to where the SAI is, down the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the plug from it, which is over this side down the bottom. You will not be able to see it from in the camera, but it's literally down the bottom there through the gap. Gonna unplug that, and then there are 3 8mm Allen bolts. Let's see if we can see it better from underneath. So this is it. The plug is at the back. We'll be undoing the plug, undoing the Allen bolts, removing this big thing, finally getting that out of the way, and then it's about putting everything back together. But for now, gonna get this removed. Right, so it's time to start removing the bracket that the SIA is mounted on. We'll start off with the first 8mm Allen bolt just there next to the oil cooler, and just gonna undo that and then find the other 2. Apparently there are 3, so just gonna start off with that. So now we've got the pump off. So if you're having trouble with the bracket, just remember you've got the one at the top, and then you've got the 2 side by side a bit further down. All right, and that's that. These are the 2 hoses. Big annoyance. Load of stuff off, and this isn't even everything. Obviously I've already taken a load of stuff off, but I think what I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to start capping and blanking things off before I start forgetting. This needs to be capped. This pipe that goes down to the back of the turbo inlet pipe needs to be capped. This down here needs to be capped. There's plenty, so I'm going to go ahead and start getting on with that and just capping off things. I'm also going to change this hose on the fuel pressure regulator. I've got a new one, just to make sure that everything with that is all good. Need to clean up the head down there for the inlet manifold and put that back on. There's tons still to do, but we're almost done. Right guys, so I've just been taking the time to clean up on the inlet side of the engine here, ready for my inlet manifold to go back on, because it's come to that time now that I can start putting everything back together. So I'm going to go ahead and put my inlet manifold back on, start capping things, and start plugging things back in and trying to build this back up and then get it running. What I'm going to do, actually, put a new fuel line in and then run my boost gauge from the line that goes to the diverter valve instead, but I'll show you all of that underneath the inlet manifold. I'm just going to go and get that now. So these 2 ports here on the bottom are capped off now. These 2, one of these is going to go to my diverter valve and my boost gauge, and the other one is going to go to my fuel pressure regulator. So I'm just going to go ahead and start running those lines. All I'm going to do is run this straight to that, and then I'm going to run some of the 4mm vacuum hose over to the inlet manifold to cut a section out of the middle, put my T-piece back in, and then connect my boost gauge back up. Guys, so another thing I am doing while this is off, because I disconnected the whole throttle butterfly and everything off this before, when I was doing the thermostat, I didn't replace the gasket back then because I wasn't planning ahead, but now I'm going to quickly do that as well. Replace the gasket on that, then I'm going to put the manifold on. That manifold's back on. Need to put the injectors back in, but don't forget to do your plugs. This one that goes down below there underneath the manifold, this one here, and this one down the bottom as well. Remember, this remains capped. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do my brake booster bond now. So that hose is going to go on there, clamped, and then the other end is going to go onto the check valve where we removed the hose from before. So I'm just going to go ahead and do all that now. Right, so underneath you can see I've got my new fuel pressure regulator line and my line going to the diverter valve, boost gauge cut into it there, and the fuel pressure regulator one going down below as well. This hose is back on, everything's all plugged in, fuel rails back on, injectors are back in, wires clipped back in, inlet manifolds all done up. It's almost time to start it. I need to put my dipstick tube back in now as well, so I'll do that. That is pretty much job complete. Dipstick tubes back in, everything's back on. All I need to do is spray that bracket for the catch cam, which I'll do when I get a moment. I mean, the weather now is pretty nice, so I should really do it now. Maybe if I go for a little test drive and come back and it's still daylight, I'll just spray that up. But yeah, I mean, look, everything's a lot more cleaner. A lot of stuff missing. There's a lot of things unplugged at the minute, and I'm expecting to get an engine management light come up. Things haven't been mapped out, but if I show you that now, if you have a look at the engine bay and you have a look at what has come off it, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't even believe that they could cram all that stuff into every single nook and cranny in here. But need to put some coolant in. So I've got my G12 coolant inside. I'm not too sure whether it's ready mixed or not or whatever, but I'll go and grab that and fill that back up. Got to look out just in case any leaks have cropped up now since I changed that coolant neck over there, and make sure that nothing's coming out of the oil cooler and stuff like that. But yeah, man, everything's looking a lot better. Everything's hooked up, catch cans hooked up, can't complain. Coolant in, turn the key, see what happens. So that's it, got the ready mix coolant, it's topped up. Just gonna run it, let it bleed itself out, let all the air come up to the top. Fingers crossed, I'll start it up and all goes well. Pray for me, pray for me. Alright, at the minute, we're all good. On the inside, there's no engine lights or anything as of yet. So, happy with that. I know things are bound to creep up, but don't get that awful sound of the SAI anymore, man. That screeching, it's really, really annoying. So I'm gonna take it for a quick test drive, make sure everything's okay, everything's operating nicely, and then fingers crossed that's the end of it. So, time now to go for a test drive. My engine management lights come on now, but I'm hoping that everything else will be okay and the car will drive nicely. Sounds good. Sweet. So I'd say for now, since doing this job, there was something that was still happening that I thought that I'd solved from swapping the N75 valve, and that was when I dipped the clutch, the revs would dip and then raise back up, and I had a suspicion that I had a vacuum leak. Wasn't sure at the time whether the N75 had solved it or not, but it hadn't. But now I've done the deletes that solved it, and I kind of think that there was a split hose that I was showing at one point to do with the Evap, and now that that's gone, I feel like it solved it. So happy days anyway. But yeah, let's go for a quick test drive, see what happens. For sure that I can notice the difference. I'm not saying the car's got any more power or anything like that at all. I'm just saying that it's running a lot better, and that's probably down to the fact that I may have had issues with some of the systems that have now been deleted. As you can see, there's so much stuff that gets removed from the engine bay that you know, if you had an issue on any of those things and you've now eliminated that being there, it's obviously going to make a big difference. So I think the car's running better. It's pulling nicely. It just feels a lot better. So I'm really happy that I've done that now. So yeah, man, on to the next few bits. Intercooler's got to be installed. Gonna go for BAM injectors as well, and just get things ready for the stage 2 map. Right guys, so not gonna bore you guys to death now. This video is probably already gonna be really long because of the amount of stuff that's been in it and stuff. But yeah, man, I'm gonna end it there. So that's all done now. can move on to more performance stuff for the Golf, and move on to more stuff with the XR2. I'll keep you guys posted. Thanks for coming to watch, and I'll see you at the next video.